Okay, so in this video we're going to be making one of these Christmas candle decorations. Now I've used 5mm width paper strips for mine because I'm going to be making them into hanging decorations for my Christmas tree. But of course you can use the same design for Christmas cards, gift tags or anything else you can think of basically. So I've got 3 examples here to show you a few variations. Now I'm using paper strips made out of Japanese tant paper, which I sell in my shop, and I use this because I love the quality of the paper and the colours available, and because of the quality of the paper it tends to give me quite tight coils, and you can see the difference between this and the others. These are also slightly longer strips and I tend to use half strips, quarter strips. So while this one is done with half strips of the tant paper, this is done with half strips of the standard quilling paper. So I've got a slightly larger design in these rather than this one, but I'll talk a bit more about that as we get going. So the other two made from standard quilling papers, so that works perfectly well as well. Now both of these white candles have been made using a superfine tipped quilling tool, and the blue one has been made using a standard quilling tool. So you can see if you have a look in the center of the coils on this blue one and the greenery and the flame and everything, the holes in the center are a lot bigger, whereas for these in the center using the superfine tool, it's a lot smaller. That's just to give you an idea. So if you have a standard quilling tool, by all means that will be just fine for the job, but the superfine is lovely for this as well. Now of course you can choose any colour you wish for your candle body. Here I've got 2 white ones, I've got a pale blue one there, but by all means match your decor, the colours that you have on your Christmas tree, or for whoever you're making it for, their favourite colour, etc. Then for the greenery, it's completely up to you whether you use all one colour of green. I've got a couple of different shades here. I think I've got 3 different shades there and a couple there. So that again is completely up to you. And then for your flames, we have got, for this one I've used yellow and orange. I've put yellow on the outside. This one has orange and yellow, orange on the outside, and this one I used red and yellow, and I've got yellow on the outside. So again, orange, yellow, red, any kind of flame type colours will be fine for this as well. Okay, so I will put these to one side for now, move them out of the way. And I've got my strips ready cut here, ready to go. Now the strips I'm using, as I said, I tend to use half, quarter, eighth, etc. But obviously the strips you're using, depending where you've got them from, what type they are, they might be slightly longer or shorter. So although I'm using half a strip, just so you know, my half strips are 19.5 centimeters long. And so that's just a guideline. As long as the strips are all the same length that you start with, it will all work out in proportion, if that makes sense. If all your strips are 22 centimeters long, you'll just get a slightly larger candlestick, but it will all work out perfectly well. Okay, right, we're going to start with the body of the candle itself. So I need 4 closed loose coils for this. So I've got 4 strips of white paper. Okay, so I'm using a superfine quilling tool, but like I say, if you've just got a standard, that'll be absolutely fine as well. So I'm going to slide it into my quilling tool and start to twist. Nice relaxed hands, remember. I'm just going to go all the way to the end of the paper and then just slide it off and let it go. Now I'm not going to do any gluing just yet. I'm going to coil all my white strips first. So you get a bit of a production line going this way. But this is quite a nice way of making sure that they're closer in size to each other. Okay, so slide that one off. That's 2 down, 2 to go. Whoopsie daisy. Okay. Now this will come in practice when you are trying to get things to be roughly the same size. With practice, obviously it's exactly the same as things like knitting and crochet. Different people will have different tensions in their work. So you can see here they're roughly the same. I would say that one is maybe slightly bigger than the rest. But I'm going to start with my smallest coil, which I think is probably that one. So I'm just going to put some glue on the end. A bit of glue and smooth that down until it sticks. Okay, so remember I started with my smallest one, so now I can go to the others and measure it against the one I've already glued, and if it's quite big compared to that one, what you can always do is just make it a little bit tighter, wind it up a little bit, and then compare it. They don't have to be exactly the same, so please don't drive yourself mad with this. We're going for a rustic candlestick look. Okay, and I hate that word perfect. So we don't use it at the Quirky Quillers. It's not allowed. If you wanted perfect, you can go and buy something manufactured and get it from the shop. But we're hand makers here, so the imperfections are part of the joy of it. If you do end up with coils that are dramatically different, then you can always just have a bit more practice, keep going, make some more coils, and then match them up with the ones that are more similar. Oops. Or you could just put the bigger ones at the bottom of your candle and the smaller ones at the top, and have a kind of a tapered look to it. So, you know, there are always ways around these things. Okay, so I've got 4 circles, roughly the same as each other. Okay, now what we want to do with these is make them into squares. Okay, so this you might find a little bit tricky. It's not as easy as a teardrop or a marquise shape. We want all 4 fingers, finger and thumb on each hand. And what we want to do is just gradually, you might need to adjust your fingers position a little bit. What we want to do, can you see I'm using like the tips of my fingers to start pressing the edges down until we get 4 straight edges and 4 corners. So just do it nice and slowly. You might, as I say, you might just need to adjust things slightly. I'm not worrying about what's going on in the middle. I'm just trying to get straight edges. Now you can see that's not completely equal on each side, but that will do. That will be fine. So let's do the next one. So I'm just moving my fingers so I get 4 roughly equal sides, and then just pressing down so we get straight sides. So I'm putting the same amount of pressure from all 4 fingers at the same time. And I'm not worried about getting wonky lines. As I say, this is a rustic candle. There we go, that will be fine. And then you can see when you've got two how they just fit together. It doesn't have to be exactly straight. I'm going to do it for my third one. Just try and... There we go. I always get more of a corner in that side than the others. It's a bit more of a diamond, but that will again be fine. I'll probably keep that, or I might have that one at the top, because you often get that kind of ridge on top of the candle where it's burning. The wax is melting, doesn't it? So last one. There we go. I might put that one at the bottom. So play around with them, see how they fit better. I'm quite happy with that. There we go. And before we move on, I'm going to glue these together, and then the glue can dry while we're making other elements. So just a little press, gluing that edge. And then add the next one. Feel free to use some tweezers as well if that's easier for you. I'm using the 5mm paper, so I've got enough to hold on to that. I don't particularly need tweezers for this one, but you do whatever helps you to do your quilling without getting too gluey. And there we go. So I've got my candle body there, so I can put that to one side and it can just dry off while we're making the other elements. So next we are going to make a flame for the top of our candle. Now I'm using orange and yellow here, but feel free if you want to use any colours, yellow and red or orange and red, any flame colours that you choose. And again, as with all the elements for this, make the half strips for me, or 19.5 centimetres long or thereabouts. Now this time I'm going to put both colours together. So I'm putting one on top of the other, and then I'm going to slide them both into the quilling tool. So it's a little bit trickier, just managing two lots of paper at the same time. And if the gap in your quilling tool is very small, then you might need to just very gently tease it apart so you can get both in together at the same time. So it's exactly the same technique. So I'm just trying to get those strips right at the end before I start to coil, and take it nice and slowly. Now it's completely up to you which colour you have on the outside and which on the inside. It gives you a slightly different look. So the last one I made had yellow on the outside, so this time I've gone for orange, and I'll be able to show you the difference then. So I'm going all the way to the end, and as you can see, the colour that I've got on the outside is shorter than the one on the inside, but that's fine. We're going to sort that out. I'm going to slide that off and let it go. Now just be a little bit careful because it could still separate and we don't want that. So just going to carefully pick it up. So I've got both colours together. I'll put my teeth back in, and I'm going to trim the ends so they're the same length. And what I'm going to do is just pull those apart, put a little dab of glue in between, and just glue them together so I know the colours can't separate now. And then what I'm going to do is just wind it up a little bit so it's a bit smaller, and then put another dab of glue on my glued ends and press that down so we've got a closed loose coil. So just make sure that's glued down nice and firm, so it's exactly the same as we've coiled before. We've just got two colours in there to give it a bit of a contrast. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to find the ends where I've glued it down, and I'm going to put my pinch there so we get a nice teardrop shaped flame. There we go, and you can see that kind of orange, that two-tone colour giving that flame effect, which is lovely. Okay, so we've got our candlestick. That should be nice and glued now. So I'm going to put my flame on next. Again, gives it time to dry. So I've just gone nice dab of glue right on the rounded end of my flame, and then just gently press that down. Now you can see that I'm always putting mine on a flat surface to make sure it's nice and even. There we go. So we're getting there, aren't we? So we just need a base for the candle to sit on. So again, I'm just going to move that to one side, and we're going to make some leaves. Now for this design, we've got two different types of leaves. We're going to start with the marquees because that's most similar to the other elements that we've done. So whatever colour you choose to use, I'm going to go for a lighter colour this time. And we are going to coil it exactly the same way. It's exactly the same length, so half strips for me, or 19.5 centimetres, or whatever length you are starting with, depending on how big you want yours to be. And we need 5 of these in total. So I will probably do 3 in a lighter green and 2 in a darker one. But again, you can have them all the same colour, all of them different colours. It's completely up to you, and that's, you can play around with it and do as many different variations. Let's just snip that so it's more even. So again, I'm just doing all my rolling to start with, and then I'll do all the gluing, and then I'll do all the shaping. So I've got 3 in the lighter green, I'll do 2 in the darker green. So just one more. All the way to the end. There we go. Right, and of course these are leaves, so you really don't have to worry about them being all exactly the same. Because no leaves would be exactly the same. So gluing the ends down. Last one. There we go. So I've got my 5 leaves. They don't look very leaf shaped though at the moment, do they? And that one's trying to unglue. So there's that one. Behave, papers. Okay, so we need to shape them. So if you remember, I've looked for the end that I've glued down or tried to glue down. And I'm going to put 2 pinches at the same time. Just like that. So finding the end, putting 1 pinch there and another pinch opposite, both at the same time. And last one. There we go. So here's my candlestick. What I'm going to do is just glue one of the greens. Put some glue at the base of it. I'm just going to put that right at the bottom of the candlestick. Oops, stay. And that's the only one I'm going to do for now, because then we're going to put a couple on the bottom of that. So we've got those ready. Let me just move them out of the way slightly. Then for the ones at the bottom, we're going to use a slightly different technique. Okay, so I'm going to use exactly the same length of strip as I've been using all the way along. And what I'm going to do is just use my nail. Feel free to use scissors if you prefer. And I'm just going to start by giving the paper a curl, just running my nail along it to start giving it that curl so it knows what I'm wanting it to do. Then I'm going to bring this end down to meet the rest of the paper and just make a loop. Then at the base of that loop, I'm going to put a fold. So you have that kind of shape. So I'm not gluing anything down, I've just made a loop and then put a fold in it. Then I'm going to make another loop slightly bigger. So I've got 2 loops. Okay, and then again at the base where it meets, I'm going to put another fold. So I'm going round and round, just making loops slightly bigger each time. So I normally get 4 loops in. And that has worked out quite nicely for me. If you've got any excess at the end, that's absolutely fine, just trim it off. I've just got a tiny bit hanging over. I'll just trim that bit off, and then without letting go, I've just got this the end bit for a little dab of glue so that can fix down. And that's what we call a wheat ear. Okay, so it's just lots of loops together. Again, you might need a little bit of practice. And then that's going to sit at the bottom. So I want it to be just a bit of a kind of a cup shape. So I'm just going to bend it round. Can you see? Bend it round that pad of my finger and then put a point at the top. So it's quite straight here and it's curved on the other side. Okay, we'll do that again because we need another one for the other side. Let's use a slightly lighter colour green so it's not completely even. I'm going to run my nail along it to give it a bit of a curve. I'm going to make a loop, a small loop, and at the base of that loop, where the end of the paper is, I'm going to put a fold. So that's the kind of shape we get. And then I'm going to follow it round to make another loop that's slightly bigger. And again at the base, I'm going to put another fold. Follow it round again, like so. And again at the base, another fold. And hopefully I'll have just enough paper to make a 4th loop. Okay, I've got a bit left over at the base, so I'm going to pin that off, and then without letting go, I'm going to get hold of that end, dab of glue, and press it down. So I've got 4 loops. Then I'm going to use the pad of my finger to keep that end straight. This side is going to be curved, and I'm just going to put a point like so. Okay, so I've got 2 wheat ears. Okay, so let's bring our candle back in, and what we're going to do is put 1 on each side. So I've got 2 different colours, you might have 2 the same. So they are going to sit like that, okay? So if you just work out where the middle is, and I know how much glue I want on that section, and then pop that in place, and then do it for the other side. Like so. Just give that a second or 2 to dry. So then we just have our other 4 leaves that we've already made to fit in around that. Now, if your candle starts to lean a little bit, just manipulate it, don't worry about it. Right, so I'm going to go for, let's put them this way. So the next 2 are going to sit alongside like so. So this one will glue onto this one, and this one will glue onto this one. I'll give it some more strength. Okay, so I want glue all the way along one edge, like so. I'm just gonna press that down for a second, make sure it's gonna stay. There we go, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. A nice amount of glue, and then slide that one in. So we're kind of making a bit of a boat shape really at the bottom of the candle base. Like so, and then we've got 2 more leaves, and they're going to just sit at an angle on either side like so. Okay, so you can, again, by just placing them first, you can see where you want your glue to be, where it's going to be in contact with what you've already got. So just either side of that point and slide it in, and on this one and slide it in. And there we go, there we have our candlestick. So that's ready to go. If you're going to put it onto a card, it's good to go already. If you want to make it into a hanging decoration, I would just put some ribbon or a piece of wire just right in the tip of the candlestick, so it will hang, as I've done with this one. And there we go. They look quite effective when they're all together as well. Move them down for the camera. There we go. So there we have it, our Christmas candlestick decorations. Enjoy!